Hi everyone, how are you? My name is Noelia and today your girl has a story time coming at you. And as you can tell by the title, it's about a music teacher that I used to have that was a little cray-cray. So, I have my coffee here today. And I have a little notepad to help me keep track of the story because I might go off on a tangent and I don't want to do that. Let's just start with how I got to this school. So, my mom and dad happened to find a music school in my area that was fairly cheap compared to other prices of music schools to do lessons and stuff like that. And I really wanted to do like vocal lessons and all that jazz. So, they found pretty cheap and they were really excited and I was excited. I was like, yes, finally. So, one night, me and my mom went to go check it out. And then, to give you a little background on the music school, later on I found out about most of the stuff that went on, but usually there was the guy that owned the place, a girl sitting up front, she was around my age, I was like 17 at the time, and literally all the other teachers were kids around my age. So I was very confused. The only adults there were really the guy that owned the place and the two other vocal coaches that I had seen and encountered with. So I was so confused and I was just like, okay, whatever. It kind of seemed a little sketch, but it was whatever. I mean, it was cheap and they got the job done, so it was whatever. So, I had met, we'll call my teacher Lisa. I had met Lisa on my first night going there with my mom to go check it out and kind of sign the paperwork and get me all registered and everything, right? I had met her and she had been coming out from a lesson she was doing. And she saw me and she was like, hi, like, what kind of lessons are you into or whatever? And I told her that I wanted to do vocal lessons. And she happened to be the vocal teacher, so she was all excited. She's like,
oh my god, so nice to meet you, I'm Lisa.
And da-da-da-da, like, our vocal lessons here are awesome. I'll teach you a little bit about everything and whatever. She made me feel very welcome, very comfortable. It was all great, right? Next couple of weeks passed by and it was time for my first lesson. However, a couple days before, the music school had contacted my mother and told us that Lisa had an emergency and she went to the hospital. So my lesson with her would not be able to happen unless I was cool with going with the other music teacher, the vocal coach, whatever you want to call them. So I was comfortable with that. I was like, whatever, I was still testing out the waters. I would see if like the other music teacher was cool or not, whatever, right? So I went. The other teacher was fine. She, was very on top of things. She was very much by the book and kind of strict. So she didn't make me feel as welcome as Lisa did. So I was kind of just like more gravitated towards her. So I just was like, whatever, this is our first lesson. It's not a big deal. We can just pick it up next week, whatever. So the next week came by. Lisa felt better and I had my lesson with her. I went into the lesson and she showed me around a little bit, which seemed normal. And she started going to how and why, like, she went to the hospital and, like, why she had to miss last week's lesson, blah, blah, blah. Literally, I would say about 30 minutes passed by of her just talking and talking and talking about her health issues and talking about where her dad's from and whatever, right? Which is fine. I was concerned. I was like, oh my god, are you feeling okay now? Like, are you okay? Whatever. I was 17. I was just naive and I was just like, whatever. Like, she's just telling me all this to let me know. So, after all that talking, she had looked at the time. She's like, okay, well, let's start whatever. Finally, after like 30 minutes out of the 60 minutes my mother had paid for me to have this lesson, right? We did the lesson and she was just going through exercises with me. And then the last 15 minutes, she just kept talking and talking and talking again. So basically, I only really had 15 minutes of lessons, like around there. Like I feel like I barely had gotten any instruction compared to the other vocal coach. But at the time, I was just dismissing it as like, oh, this is our first lesson. Maybe she wanted to get a feel about who I am and who she is, whatever. So I just dismissed it and went on with my day, and my mom had asked how it went, and I had told her how it went great. We did exercises. She, told me my range, whatever. Just telling her all this stuff. I didn't really tell her about all the talking because I figured she'd get mad because, it's my mother's money. All this stuff where I was just like, I know my mom's going to say something, so I'm just not going to say anything. I'll just dismiss it and whatever. So the next week comes by, and I had another lesson with her. It was another 60-minute lesson, and pretty much the same thing happened where she just talked half the time and didn't really give me much instruction. And at this point I was kind of just like, okay, well, she did this last time. I really don't want her to talk half the time because I want her to get on with the lesson. I want to learn. And she was looking at the time. She realized how much time she had not given me instruction. So she was just like, oh, well, I have another young lady coming in, and I would love to see how your two voices mesh together because I feel like you guys would both be great, whatever. So the other girl came in. She was a little bit younger than me, and she had made the girls sing a song in front of me, the song that they had been working on, and she was a great singer. I loved her. She was awesome. And then so she was like letting us sing together a little bit, and it was like 15 minutes into the other girl's session, and I felt bad because, like, you know, you pay for your lessons individually for a reason, and you know, you don't want your time wasted. So I kind of felt bad, so I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go now. Peace out, bye, whatever. So I kind of felt bad, and I was just like kind of iffy about the whole situation. I was kind of just like, okay, well, she didn't seem like that great this time, whatever. My mom had paid for like a month full of lessons, so I still had like one more lesson with her. And then come to find out, like a couple days before my next lesson with her, the music school contacts my mother and tells me how they fired her. And she had expressed to me before, during those times where she would talk, about how she didn't like the owner of the music school. She didn't like how he ran it. She didn't agree with a lot of stuff about him, whatever, and how he paid her, stuff like that. And I would agree with her on some points on how he ran the school. Again, there was teenagers teaching the students. Like, there wasn't actual certified teachers other than the two that I had met. I mean, there was probably more, but I personally didn't see any more. So I was just kind of, yeah, agreeing with her. But then again, it was just like, if you really don't like it, then why don't you just quit? You know? So they had fired her, and she had gotten my number because on the first day of our lessons, she asked for my number. She said, I like to personally keep in contact with my students, and here's my card, here's my number, whatever. So when we found out she got fired, she had sent me a message saying how she got fired and how she would still like to book another lesson with me. So it was fine, it was whatever. And at this point I had told my mom about how she would talk during the lessons. So she had sent me the address of where she wanted us to have the lesson, and it was at this piano store that I would always pass by in childhood. Like, I remember as a child just always passing by that store, and I loved the piano, so I was always like, you know, look at it and be like, oh my god, I wonder what's in there, because it was private. So we went there, and it was actually really cool. Like, these two brothers run it, and like all this stuff. They were really nice. They gave me little knickknacks to take home, but regardless, we had our lesson there. My mom sat in on the lesson because she kind of felt sketched out by the place either way because it wasn't in a good area. And she still wanted to see how the teacher was. So, funny enough, when my mom sat in on the lesson, she didn't talk one word. She went straight into exercises and whatever. It was like probably the most productive lesson we've ever had. And after that lesson, we had left, and my mom just told me how she saw how uninterested I was and how I really wasn't fond of the teacher anymore. Throughout like the lesson, she kind of made me feel more and more uncomfortable. And I agreed. I was just like, yeah, I really could care less about having lessons with her anymore. So we just stopped keeping in contact with her. Eventually, she did contact my mother about booking another lesson, and my mom just had told her how in school I found out I could do voice lessons, whatever, and that they'd be for free, so I wouldn't have to pay her, whatever. Stuff like that, where it was just like, okay, well, we don't need your services anymore, but thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much for your time. A couple of weeks passed by where she would always just keep texting and texting and texting my mom. Oh, would Noelle like to book a lesson this week? Oh, would she like to do this thing with this student this week? And blah, blah, blah. And messaging her about just any little thing to try to get me to come back. And I don't know, that just made me feel even more uncomfortable. Like, if we already told you we're good, like, we're good, thank you so much for your time, like, we're going elsewhere, you know, being professional and everything, you just be like, okay, they don't want anything to do with me, whatever, that's fine. And the last straw that, was just like, stop where she called me and she was telling me about this concert that was happening in the area and how that girl previously that she had made me sing with was going to perform in it, and she would love if we were doing a duet and blah blah blah. And I didn't even pick up the phone. Like, I let her leave a voicemail because I was just so uncomfortable at this point where I was just like, she's just creeping me out. She's kind of low-key like harassing us to do another lesson with her. So I was just like, bye-bye. Like, no, Lisa. Like, I'm not picking up the phone for you anymore. And so that happened, and my mom found out, obviously, because I told her. And my mom was so... She wasn't so angry, but she was upset because obviously, like, if we told you we're good, we're good. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. So she was upset, and she just told her basically, stop messaging us. Like, this is so unprofessional. Like, if we told you we're good, we're good. Like, basically what I had just said. So that was the end of that. Basically, overall, I just think this was just a huge waste of my time. She was a little cray-cray because she would just tell me a bunch of like personal things that I just didn't really care about. She was like a 40-something-year-old lady, and I was 17. Like, you had no business in telling me all your personal information and like stuff that I just didn't really need to know. That was the time I had a crazy music teacher that basically would harass me to have lessons with her and waste my time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below if you had like a crazy experience with a teacher. It doesn't matter if it was music related or not. So yeah, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, whatever, all that cheesy stuff, you know. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye bye.